everybody to YouTube, the Wednesday class that shall not be named. Very excited to be here today with wonderful people on Zoom and YouTube. As we can see, we've got Lou here in person, Karen, Michael, Arlene, Flossie, and disembodied hand, right hand as well. He is graciously, is a movie star, graciously came here from the Addams Family set to make sure to join us. Or
Doesn't
from
have
the
to put
TV
his
show.
makeup on.
Yeah, from the TV show as well, which I thought was excellent. So we're going to talk a little bit about who wrote the Bible, but beforehand we're talking about Israel and just a little bit of a discussion on whether anti-Israel means anti-Semitism. I say it does often. There's nothing wrong with criticizing Israel, but there is something wrong with criticizing Israel's right to exist. So that's, Ron, how I define the difference. But you had a question. Or maybe not. Okay. So we all know the news is very bleak and grim, and we're getting a lot of support in the States, which is great. Obviously, we knew Hamas's goal was to stop Israel's peace process negotiations and to make Israel even more of a pariah and to force Israel to do something they didn't want to do, which obviously Israel has no choice. What they exactly do is still up to see, but we know generally what's going to happen. So any thoughts before we go to our lesson for today? We can skip the lesson too if you want to do other stuff. It's not a problem. So
yeah, I have all these protesters, do they really know what do they think they're protesting against?
Well, you have to understand, the people who are not know Israel is the bad guy. That is the narrative that everybody they see in college campuses. Israel is the brute, the Palestinians are the innocents. Israel is abusing the Palestinians and they are freedom fighters. So that is the narrative that a lot of these people, especially college students, see. It's kind of
do they realize that they're protesting? Are they protesting against the Jewish people?
Some do, some don't. I mean, we had protests here in Savannah that was very peaceful. I'd heard through the news it was. I knew some people went pro-Palestinian. And you can understand, I mean, the Palestinians are suffering terribly. It is not their fault. They have a government that they do. But then two people went up and were saying some really terrible things and using phrases which basically meant kill all the Jews in Israel. And these were not Muslim women. These were American Christian college students. And they were saying some terrible things while the Palestinians and the Muslims were saying, listen, we're not trying to be anti-Semitic. We believe Jews have the right. We just want to be supportive of the Palestinians. So again, it was not the Palestinians or the Muslims who were saying these terrible things in the protests. They were very peaceful. It was, probably two college students who were not Muslim and were not, were, Anglo and 21 years old. Flossie, you wanted to say something?
I happened to be in Savannah Sunday and saw the protests.
Okay.
And first it surprised me how big it was. It took me back. I thought it'd be a few people. There were a lot of people there.
My wife said it was about 50.
Well, it was maybe 2 or 3 people on the line and going, maybe 50 or more. I mean, but they kept coming and
dropping. That it looked like more.
Also it's an angle run. They could shoot.
Well, whenever you're on the news, they have to show the angle where it looks like it's a lot of people. And so
that's what I'm saying. But with marching, there were people as far as shouting. And again, I wasn't looking who it was. I was with 2 people from the temple who were just taken back with it. Down with Israel, they even put as far as how Israel massacred in Gaza. And I shouted out, Israel massacred. I mean, what a way of flipping the news. And they marched to Forsyth Park. I guess that's where they wanted to.
Well,
say.
my wife only saw the Forsyth Park start at the beginning, so she didn't see any of that.
All
She's
right,
got the
I
opposite.
saw them. I was at a concert at a church in Savannah, and we came out and they were meeting in one of the.
That must have been a whole different group of people came. Funny enough,
No, I think Rabbi, they marched to Forsyth Park, so April might have seen them.
no, I
And-
think they started at Forsyth Park and they marched to they're supposed to march to Johnson Square. I thought that's what they were doing. I could be wrong. I wasn't there.
All
I was
right. They were shouting a lot of hate and anti.
So this was some different people than this is different than what was going on at the beginning. So there's always going to be people like that. But, you know, our vigil was several hundred people in support of Israel, and we only had, less than a day to plan it. So if we had organized more, it probably would have been 1,000 people there. So there's always going to be haters, and that is not a problem. If they're protesting peacefully, that's fine. If they're shouting stuff like what you were saying, that is not fine. So, but it's always going to be, Israel is a pariah in many respects, and that gives the leaders to do anything they want, as long as, terrorist organizations and their view cannot do anything except if they do it to Jews, then it's okay. They do it to Israel, it's okay, but if they do it to anybody else, it's not. So, I mean, Hamas is the same as ISIS or Hezbollah. They have no care for their people. Their whole ideology is to destroy Israel and kill Jews. The irony is a lot of people in the West have kind of latched onto them as freedom fighters and that they're protecting the rights, when they don't realize Israel wasn't even Israel hasn't been in Gaza in 15 years.
Right.
I mean, all they do is protect the borders to keep weapons out. Apparently, they didn't do that good of a job. There's a lot of money that flows into Gaza. There's a lot of money that flows in there, and it doesn't seem to get to the people. But if the people have money and the people are living well, then Hamas can't say, these terrible things about Israel. So they have to make
Right.
sure. So at this point, Israel has no choice. They're going to ignore what everybody says and just do what they think they need to do. Just like what we did in Iraq. I mean, 9/11. We felt like we had to do something, and we did, without any care of what other people said. Hi, Jane. Hi, Larry. Good to see you guys. All right. Do we can still talk about this, or do we want to talk about the lesson itself? I'm fine either way. Flossie.
Talk about current
you want-
events.
Sorry. Do you want to just mention what you and I had spoken about?
Yeah, we can mention that. It's definitely. I was going to do it at the end, but you want to do it now?
Oh, whenever you
Okay,
want.
we'll do it at the
Rabbi.
end. Let's get through the lesson. We'll talk.
Oh,
Karen.
can I just mention something, because I wanted to tell you all about it. I don't know if it's been around there for a while, but I discovered something on Netflix the other day, a wonderful documentary, a 2-hour documentary about Shimon Peres.
Oh, really? What's it
That
called?
was so, I wish I could remember. I'll look it up and I'll email.
Okay.
I'll look it up and I'll send a message in the chat right now. But it not only was it was about his whole life, where he came from in Belarus, and beautiful, but it was also sort of embedded into it was this modern history of Israel. And I didn't remember some of it. I don't think I knew how much he did for the state of Israel. I mean, the raid, talked about the raid on Entebbe had been his, something he pushed for. So I really recommend it. I'll look up the title if you have Netflix. It was such a beautiful 2 hours, and something optimistic about Israel, hopeful. Really, we needed that evening. So,
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah. So I'll look it up and then I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think we're
Okay, that was it.
also
As an
sitting
aside.
back, waiting, just catching the news whenever we can, and trying to make sure we weed out, as much as possible what's really going on. So it's hard to tell sometimes. And then it'll be and it'll be in the news, the front page, for however long, and then it'll start to fade, kind of like Ukraine has done recently. But we'll see what happens. But there's a lot of support in America. I mean, I have not had not a single threat or anti-Israel email, text, or anything, or Facebook message to me. It's been support.
That's good.
Larry, and you're on mute, Larry. I'll help you with that. I'll give you a, there you go. That should give you a thing to say, just press a button. There you go.
This morning on TV, the president of Yeshiva University came on. Apparently, he is heading sort of a coalition of university groups, and he's got hundreds of them from the United States to sign on to talk about, their condemnation of the terrorist attack and their support for Israel. And what was interesting is that also he got a large number of Black universities to sign on as well to the statement. So
Wow, that's interesting.
Encouraging support, to counter some of the, the misinformation that's been going around and these misperceptions. And we're seeing there's so much more. There's been a lot of reports now that a lot of the footage that you see of destruction that they put out in Gaza, that Hamas has put out, has actually been, prior footage. There's a way of dating, apparently, the footage so that you could see when actually that was taken. Some of this could have been taken 10, 15, 20 years ago or something, or it could have been, much, some of it could have been, just fabricated artificial intelligence kind of stuff. So you got to be very aware of all kinds of misinformation that's going on.
Larry, you're correct, Larry, because on the internet, there's a portion that shows what they're showing and what is fact and what is not fact. And most of it is, like you said, is from previous encounters, not what's happening now.
Yeah, and I get all my news, and I know it's accurate from Al Jazeera. So I know that is 100% accurate. And so we have to.
The live reporting has been sensational, though, I think, from Israel, the CNN and the people that are actually on the ground on live.
And you also have to remember, if you want to be in Gaza as a reporter, you can only report from the perspective of Hamas. You're not allowed in there. Well, now maybe they'll change a little bit, but if you want to report in Gaza, well, you can only report what Hamas, or if you're in the air, so these are not free countries that allow free reporting. It's, again, the great irony is never cease. My favorite is the gay rights movements that are so anti-Israel and so supportive of the Palestinians. And obviously, if you're gay in Gaza, it's expected that people will kill you. It's like, it's a rule, it's a law, these people. And so, yet it's one of those ironies that people don't understand.
And what's also so extraordinary and ironic is the inability of the leadership of the other Arab countries. I mean, the fact that they've, Biden flies over there, most courageous thing to do for a wartime president during war, to fly over there and to discard the fact that they had a person-to-person meeting based on information that was sketchy at best at the time, and to kind of, sanctify that information was correct, I think is horrible. The fact that they, just don't want a peace settlement. There's no inclination of Egypt. There's very little inclination of Jordan, Lebanon, of course. It just is just horrible that they're infusing this kind of thing, and the fact that when an American president goes over there to try and at least establish some communications, the fact that they deny him a person-to-person audience, I think, is horrible.
Yeah, Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia, though, are very, and under difficult circumstances. In that world, you cannot overtly be supportive of Israel against the Palestinians. If you're a leader, you can't say Israel's right and the Palestinians are wrong. It is just not allowed to be done.
They can at least calm their membership down. I mean, to try.
They can privately, but not overtly. Even if Saudi Arabia, we know, has been making negotiations with Israel. We know Saudi Arabia supports Israel way more than the Palestinians at this point. We know that most of the countries in the Middle East could care less about the Palestinians. They just do it to be anti-Israel. But you still can't overtly say certain things in that world because your feel of uprising in your own country It's
Right.
kind of like, it's just not allowed. I mean, you cannot say the Palestinians are wrong, the Israelis are right. You can chastise things, certain things, but when you get into a war like this, you can't say what you really are thinking. You can do things behind the scene, but leaders from Muslim countries are not basically allowed to support Israel openly in a war like this.
But you know, the thing is, if and you're absolutely right, but if you
Yes.
think of it in terms of leadership,
I'm right for once.
excuse me,
As I knew I was going to be right one day.
you're right probably every day, at least once. But seriously, you know, especially Saudi and Jordan, if you talk about leadership and a little bit of courage, you might want to say something, because if you're a leader, maybe you can change minds, but they have no inclination to do that, because they're more concerned about their power. And that's what's really, I mean, that's what you were saying, but that's what's really wrong about it.
Right, but you got to understand it's not them, it's just the culture itself. I mean, the last time somebody did this was probably when
Sadat.
Sadat, he's assassinated very soon afterwards.
Yeah.
But, a lot of them taking steps. I mean, Saudi Arabia taking steps to and United Arab Emirates to kind of make peace. I mean, that's a big step. Egypt keeping a strong peace, Jordan keeping a strong. So the governments are not going to come out and do anything against Israel. You're not going to see Jordan, the government, or Egypt, the government, or Saudi Arabia, the government, or they're not going to send troops. But they outwardly have to lambaste Israel. That's just it's the rule. It's the rule of the game. But Jordan especially is very tenuous, because it's a Palestinian, new Palestinian country run by people who aren't Palestinians. So what they're trying to do is make sure that those Palestinians do not go into Jordan. That's what they don't want, more of them, because most people don't want the Palestinians in their country because they're afraid that Hamas will be part of it, and that they will be so nobody really wants them. They will support them as an anti-Israel. I mean, is Iran going to take the Palestinians into their country? I doubt it. Only if they're going to arm them to go into war in Syria. Flossie.
What you and I mentioned earlier, Rabbi, is, to me, I'm shocked that the Pope is not making a condemnation, as far as with all the people he doesn't have to choose sides, but is being humanitarian as far as protesting what happened.
Well, this viewpoint of Israel as the bad guy has kind of become the narrative in Europe as well. And supporting Israel against the Palestinians is a very bad political move for a lot of people. And so it is, it's been, how many years have we heard Israel is the bad guy? After 50 years of it, it's very hard to change that ideology in people. And so if the Pope comes out and renounces Israel, and all of the constituents are upset at him because how is he doing this? Because the poor Palestinians are suffering. It's hard to know. We're Jewish and we have a stake in the game. But for others, it's not only about what you say publicly, it's what you do behind the scenes. And Israel's not going to get a lot of support publicly, no matter what happens. I mean, we just saw a horrific massacre on a level we've never seen before. And yet a lot UN, European countries, of course, the Muslim countries, nobody's denouncing it. Only America and a few countries are doing it. And this was a horrific thing beyond anything we could imagine. And we knew that Israel would have to attack Hamas, and that Israel would all of a sudden be the bad guy again, which we all happened a day or two later than we usually would think, but it's already happened again. So, Larry.
Yeah, I was going to say something about Netanyahu, and I think his future is probably kaput now. I think Israeli people recognize that the cabinet that he's put together has been horrible. I hope this military coalition that he's put together, this military government, with Benny Gantz, works a little bit better. He tries to walk the middle line here, apparently, with keeping his own ministers in place, which is horrible, together with Gantz. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. And I know they have only authority while the war is going on, but I think his future is basically over. And I think it's a lesson for the United States that you don't put someone in charge who is got such corruption and such, his own goals in mind, that he has to stay in power in order to avoid not going to jail.
Yeah, I mean, in usual circumstances, it would spell the end. He is a better politician than anybody else in history. His coalition does not want to lose power. I don't know if he's going to be ousted, because I think the people in his party and all the ultra-Orthodox parties that he support him, they do not want to lose power more than anything else. So usually I'd say yes, but I don't know if it's going to be for sure or not. I think if there was an election now, he would lose, but I don't know when the next election is, not for a 2 years or something. So we'll see what happens. He has been in power for the most part of 16 years, except for a few months or a year. And yeah, so I think you're right. I mean, this was a major gaffe on the part of Israel. And the funny thing,
were to make some concessions and, at least get rid of a couple of those cabinet ministers
Yeah.
that are against, a two-state solution and some of those things right now, I think it would be at least a helpful sign.
it would be, but we're thinking of it from our perspective. From his perspective, he's got the ultra-Orthodox, he's got the right-wingers, and that's who support him. So he cannot, I mean, he's already made his bed with them. So, I mean, if he had been willing to do this stuff, that would have been done years ago. So we'll see. Maybe things change. He's a very cagey politician. There's a very good chance he'll be ousted, but there's a very good chance he'll either come back or won't be, just as because of the type of coalition. The coalition is based on the idea that the ultra-Orthodox will get a lot of money, that it's more going to be a theocracy, that the right wing will be in total control. And, that's more of it, as opposed to when it comes to the territories and Lebanon and Iran, all the parties pretty much agree. Everybody is anti-Iran. Nobody is thinking two-state solution right now, even the super liberals, because they don't think they have a partner. So ideologically, when those things, almost everybody is the same. I mean, nobody is starting to make, overtures to Lebanon or Iran. Nobody is, even the lefty is not trying to make peace with the Palestinians right now, because even before this, there just wasn't any negotiation going on. So we'll see. But you're right. In many cases, if they do have another election, he will probably lose, but it's hard to tell.
The other thing that's very scary is they show the map of the settlements in northern Israel on the Lebanon border.
Right.
I was so surprised to see so many kibbutz and settlements that are so close to the border actually there. I mean, some of them are evacuated right now, but literally they are, you could look across and you could be in another country. And I mean, those are also ripe for, incursions and for,
Right.
if Hezbollah wanted to just do a limited incursion into those areas as they've been doing right now. But I was just surprised at the number of Israeli settlements that are there. It's just dots all over the map there.
Yeah, I mean, Israel has, what I think a very good belief system that this is our country and we're going to live wherever the heck we want in our country. It's like in America. I'm from a border town. Mexico was 5 minutes away from where I grew up. So when there's problems in Mexico, we're Americans. We're not going to evacuate I'm not going to let Mexico dictate where I live in my own country.
Yeah,
And
but
that's how
Rabbi,
Israel is. That's how Israel believes, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's how they do it. Now they're going to evacuate now because they know these things are coming. But once this thing is over, they're going to move right back. Ron.
the point is that every time Israel built new kibbutzes nearer to the borders, that was a topic that everyone spoke about, that these people are have to realize that they're going to be the first to be attacked.
Right. But they know this. I mean, when you move there, you don't, you're not living in Sderot because you don't know these places, that. But that's the part about being Israeli. They're like, this is our country and it's rightful. I mean, I live anywhere in my country, I should be able to live. And that's and they have to have that kind of strong, emboldened belief system because of where they live. If they did not have that, then they probably wouldn't have survived. I mean, that whole idea goes way back to the original settlers, people who moved there in recent year in the 19th century. So it's a different way of life. I mean, again, as a proponent was talking, if you live in Israel, it's very akin to living in America. I mean, there's differences, but you have the same stuff. You go to work, you live in the suburbs, or you live in the city. You've got cable TV, you go to movies, you go to festivals. Obviously, you've got a lot of ancient stuff there that's older, but you live the same life as you do here in many ways. This is a little different because this idea that we don't care what the people on our borders do, we're doing what we're going to do. That's where it's a little different. That's a great point, Ron. Any other thoughts? Sounds like we want to stay on this issue right now, so we're happy to do it. Lou?
So somebody came up to me the other day and told me how sorry they felt for the Palestinians. And I went off on them.
Well,
so much so that I had to apologize to him the next day.
Well, there's nothing, I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with feeling
Like to.
sorry. Yeah, feeling sorry for the Palestinians. The Palestinians, for the most part, are just, trapped by these terrible people. Lou?
Jonathan put Instagram on my phone, which I've never had before. So I flew through this crazy stuff.
You're
And
welcome to the 21st century.
I know it. I finally made it. There was a little blurb. It showed the elementary school kids in Gaza, 5, 6, 7 years old. We hate Israel. We hate the Jews. And this is what they're teaching them at this age. And this is what they grow up to be.
Yeah,
So
that is.
don't tell me you feel sorry for the Palestinians.
I do, because again, they're trapped in this area where their books, like Hamas is doing all these things to change them to this type of people. But most of them are not Hamas terrorists. But again, I also believe
Of course,
Israel has to do what they have to do. And
of course, I understand all that.
Yeah,
But
Lou, what was that?
But I agree
person-
with you. I mean, the books, because Hamas controls the education. So you read those books and they are indoctrinating them.
exactly. What,
Yeah,
Ron?
Lou, what was that person's to your rebuttal? What did she think?
Well,
Hey.
on TV, they show these people schlepping from the north to the south, and they show these sympathetic pictures. And this is, they're walking from, like I say, the north to the south with all their belongings on their back. And it makes for a very sympathetic, thing on TV. And I just said to him, do you understand what they did to us? And, that's what it was about, Ron.
It's who's they? I mean, it's like somebody says, oh, Israel did this. It's all the Jews. It's not all the Jews.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
not
I
all
use the same thing about Hamas.
I
I said,
know,
did you
but-
see what they did to us? So,
I know.
But it's
I know.
also,
It's horrible.
You see the
It's horrible.
protests in America, and the vigils by the Jewish communities are peaceful, and protests against can be very violent.
Right.
And, it's kind of like, I'm going to protest violence with violence and hate
Mhm.
speech. It's really, and a lot of it is not the Muslim community in America either. There's a lot of others who are doing it more than them as well. So it's a very strange dynamic. So I do feel sorry for the Palestinian people. I think they've been, like you said, indoctrinated. They are living in, they have their own area. They could just live freely and be doing fine. Their standard of living would be higher than anywhere else probably in the Muslim world if Hamas wasn't their leaders. But unfortunately, that's not how it is. And Israel's been very patient to allow these rockets shot at them all these years. So I think the patience is rightly up.
Mhm.
Flossie.
Lou, I just want to say something to what you're saying. I don't think you should answer, look what they've done to us. I'm trying to say to people, look what they did. Where it was a human, with human beings that were affected, innocent children, families were wiped out. Whether you're Jewish or you're pro-Israel, this should not have been. So if it comes up again, not what it's done to us, because right away they feel it's just Jews tuning it in. I'm trying to say to so many of my non-Jewish friends, look what was done to the world. This was wrong.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm just saying that it's not just our issue.
Right,
It's a
Thank
humanitarian.
you.
I'm
absolutely.
sorry,
I appreciate
Genevieve?
you saying that. I was just saying thank you. I appreciate her saying that. This is why I come to these classes and I see you guys as my council of elders. I think that would be great advice for a response.
I always wanted to be an elder.
Well, thank you. I think I'm
I
the
didn't mean
youngest
it
guy
like
here.
that. Okay. Council of sages.
Better word,
I
Genevieve.
love it. Thank you, Genevieve. But yeah, again, we're seeing different points of perspective. Again, when I say I feel sorry for the Palestinians, it's not to the point where I think Israel can't defend itself and doesn't need what it's going to need to do. I mean, if a Hamas guy is shooting behind an innocent Palestinian, is the Israeli soldier going to let them die? Let themselves die? No. We know Hamas shoots from hospitals, is very happy to kill their own people and say it was Israel. Very happy to cut off ways for the people to be safe out of the. I mean, it's just really disgusting what these people do. But they're the same as ISIS or Smiley Pirates or Hezbollah or what's other ones you can name, so many through the years. Flossie and Larry.
Rabbi, maybe we should bring up to the group how I had mentioned to you about a Hamas conference in Texas.
Right.
And if you want to take it from there.
Well, I mean, there's all these things. We have to be very careful about, what we do in terms of protesting. Like what Harvard did. I mean, again, there was a hotel in Texas that was going to have a Hamas conference, and they canceled it when this all happened. I think Starbucks. There were some people on Starbucks who used the workers' site and put something up. I've seen a lot of people protesting Starbucks, but Starbucks came out vehemently against this and said, listen, this is not what it's supposed to be used for. For all we know, it was one person who had access to I don't know if it was Instagram or Facebook, and put this on there. It was taken down immediately. So I don't want to be anti-Starbucks until I know for sure what's going on. So make sure to check what's going on before we become very like Harvard. Obviously, that was obvious what they did. I mean, it was this is Harvard Student Association, and it was all these groups. But even some of those groups, did not know what was going on. In some of the cases, somebody called up, somebody said, we're doing this, you want to sign on? The person said, yes, of course, without really checking what it was about. In a couple of cases, I think somebody said it was the Israelis who did that horrific thing to the Palestinians, and they signed on to chastise the Israelis, thinking it was the Israelis who committed the crime. So, but you just have to check to make sure before we get too far into protesting a group that they really, because we know media, we can have somebody can pretend to be anything. We know anybody who has access to something. So just double check before. Lou.
I was watching the baseball game the other night, and it said that Fox News or Fox Sports donated $1 million to UJF.
Oh, great. And I
I don't
think
know if that's true, but that was the little thing on the bottom.
it's great. I mean, again, these are things that are really easy to check.
Yeah, I didn't go any
you just go
further
to
than that.
reputable, just go to Fox News or go to UJF and check if it's legit.
Mhm.
Again, anybody can say somebody did this. It's and it gets
Yeah.
reported sometimes on accident. But
Right.
just double check everything. It's really easy. Flossie mentioned to me about the hotel, so I checked, and it said, yeah, that was happening, but they canceled it because of all the stuff going on. So
comment.
Larry.
One of my favorite quotes is from Macbeth, and it goes something like, if it were done, then it's best if it could be done quickly, kind of meaning that things don't end when you think they're going to end, and just because you think it's going to be done. And I mean, we're looking at our Congress, they did something very rash. They got rid of the speaker without a plan for a second, what's going to happen afterwards. And I think the same thing is happening here in Israel. We don't really, and Israel is obviously, under great restraint here. We don't know what the next step is. There apparently seems to be this void that no one is willing to fit into the Middle East here and taking over. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes as far as the after occupation, after the war, hopefully, which will be soon, what will actually happen. It would seem to me that the United States could take more of an initiative here, together with combining with trying to get some of the other nations together and showing, and Trump did a lot of stupid things. And one of the things I thought was really stupid at the time was when he went to North Korea, and he had this film made of how North Korea could become like a Hollywood on the ocean there, how they could create a Miami Beach kind of atmosphere, with all of their using their real estate. Now, Hamas has got some, not Hamas, but the Gaza Strip has got some pretty prime real estate on the ocean there that, if the Israelis combined with showing aid of trying to get the people together and showing that, this could be your future as well, together with some of the other Arab countries. And I think that's what Biden should be trying to do a lot more of.
Yeah, I mean, these are all wonderful things, and hopefully these things can happen. I mean, the fact that President Biden went out there is great, and he, went out there and despite some danger, and that the dictator. But again, you have to, what is feasible to be done? That's the question. Are there any partners willing to do it? Once this war is over, and then, some of these countries may step up, Saudi Arabia especially, may step up and say, but at this point, Israel is not, I don't think anything's going to be done. Israel's already showing great restraint right now. I mean, we all know what Israel could do if they wanted to do. So I think right now Israel's one goal is to take out Hamas. I don't think they're going to listen to anybody else right now. Once that is over, then you're right, Larry. Hopefully the president and other countries will be able to get together to do something to figure out a solution. But right now, Israel, just is not going to play ball until Hamas is taken out, I don't think. And then they've got Hezbollah to worry about in Iran as well. So, but I'm sure they would welcome support from Saudi Arabia under the table to do stuff, and they're probably getting it. There's probably Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt, and United Arab Emirates. I'm sure they're all talking with Israel behind the scenes unofficially, and hopefully that'll help to do things. Michael.
Yeah, what concerns me the most is that, yes, they want to take out Hamas, but the humanitarian toll that's going to involve is, it just really disturbs me, because Israel's not going to benefit, in terms of how the world sees it. There's no way to get rid of Hamas without killing thousands of civilians, because Hamas uses the civilians as shields. They're going to keep them there so that there is a civilian toll. And militarily, absolutely, you got to get rid of it. But from a public relations perspective, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, and you got to remember,
it's going to be bloody for Israelis.
Yeah, sorry, Mike.
They could keep pressure on Egypt. I think Egypt is a tremendous key here, because Egypt is the only other path out of there, and Egypt has got a lot of desert area that they could have set with some camps there. They could vet the people going in, and Egypt has been really an unwilling partner in trying to get this solved. They don't want.
But Larry, you have to also understand that that Hamas, you can't tell Hamas from the civilian population. They're going to want to get out too, and they're going to blend in if Egypt opens, the exit paths. This is just a horrible situation.
Yeah, you have to look at the overall perspective. Number one, Egypt does not want the Palestinians. In the Camp David Accords, Israel offered Gaza back to take Gaza. And Egypt, one of the points was the deal is off if we get Gaza and the Palestinians. You have to keep it. And you have to keep that. They do not want Hamas. They've got a lot of rogue elements in Egypt as it is. They're run by the military. They do not want the Palestinians. Israel doesn't necessarily want the Palestinians in Egypt too, because they don't want to do anything to destabilize the country or to damage their peace accord. So you're not going to probably see Israel saying Egypt should take them. If Egypt and Israel were enemies, that Israel would be saying, why doesn't Egypt just take them? But they're not. They have actually a very good peace right now. So, I doubt Israel is going to be pressing that. The problem with we all know Israel's shown in a bad light, but quite frankly, I don't think Israel cares. I think Israel cares what America thinks, but not enough to stop them from doing anything. Israel does not care what the world thinks. They know they're going to be shown in a bad light no matter what. So they're going to do what they think they need to do. Unfortunately, there may be a loss of life that is really terrible, but I don't know what the option is. If they show any weakness at all, we know Hezbollah is going to start doing it. If Hezbollah sees that Israel just lets this go, then Hezbollah is going to do the exact same thing, and it's just going to get worse and worse. That's how that world works. If you show weakness, then everybody wants to take advantage of it. So Israel has to go out of its way to be very definitive as much as they can. We saw how Hezbollah became so strong because Israel went to war with Hezbollah because they did not want to show weakness.
Yeah, but Hezbollah is already on the Syrian border and fighting on the northern border.
Yeah, that's really probably Hezbollah got trapped as well. Hezbollah is an anti-Israel organization, but they're funded by Iran. So of course, Iran wanted them to fight in Syria with the Syrian government, which Hezbollah did not want to do, but they of course wanted money from Iran. So they got kind of stuck doing that, which I thought was really ironically hilarious that they got stuck in a war they didn't want to because they're taking money from Iran. I think it was Karen, then Larry.
Yeah. There was something I saw and I think it was at one of the American retired generals, but something this morning, I don't know if anybody saw, was watching CNN. They were another factor that we haven't talked about. They said for every Palestinian civilian that's killed, they get, I can't remember what the number was, something like 3-5 recruits to Hamas. And so that's another thing. I mean, Hamas looks, they say if you kill one Hamas, militant, you're going to get 10 more joining the ranks. So I think that's part of that strategy. And it's something else.
That's Hamas's strategy. Hamas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Hamas is loving what's going on. They don't care how many people are killed. They just want chaos, and they want Israel to look bad, and they'll get more money. They want the world to be supportive. They want to stop peace treaty with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates.
Right.
That's their whole goal. That's it. There's no other goal. The goal is to destroy Israel. They have no goal of what comes next. Larry?
You brought up Syria, which is an interesting point. There was something like 7 million Syrian refugees that left Syria and that were, taken in by other Arab countries. Why do you think that's a different situation than the situation here? The other Arab countries were willing to take them in, knowing there might be even some terrorists that were part of the 7 million immigrants that were coming in. Yet, they saw it as a humanitarian need, but here it seems to be totally different.
Yeah, I think the Palestinians are looked at very differently than the rest of the Muslims. I mean, they're there for a purpose, and that is to make Israel look bad. They're also very there's Hamas there. They don't want people coming into their countries who are going to create instability. And that is why they don't want the Palestinians. So they're going to have a lot more trouble settling 2.5 million of them than 7 million Syrians. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Are the Syrians Sunnis or Shiites?
The Syrians are, I think they're Shiite, but I think there's a mix.
Okay, because that could make a difference also.
It can. But again, and I'm not an expert, but the Palestinians are looked at differently. I'm trying to remember if I think the Shiites run Syria, but I don't remember the population difference in there. I have to look that up.
I'll look it up on the CIA World.
I think the majority are Sunni. Okay, there is. It's majority is Sunni.
I got it.
Not majority. There's a lot of Druze, but it's run by Shiites. Remember, the people who run these countries are not necessarily part of the majority, like Jordan. So I should know this, but I don't remember what the percentages are. But yeah, I think as we're seeing, the world is not taking Palestinians. I mean, the UN is not offering to resettle them unless something's changed, because the UN wants them there so the UN can bash Israel. I mean, they're just pawns. And otherwise, this could have been fixed all these issues could have been fixed a long time ago if they had any reasonable want to do it. So now Israel's in a bad situation, and there's, again, it's going to get probably worse before it gets better. But hopefully things will settle down at some point. Flossie, we'll get to what Flossie wanted to bring up.
Well, if you want to bring it up after this, but another issue, Rabbi, that Israel is dealing with is the hostage situation.
Yeah.
So no matter what they do, whether these people were still alive, I mean, that's always questionable, but anything they go to do, they can be harming their own there.
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
there's, nonstop issues here. And those, the hostages they're using very vocally about what they're going to do to them. And it's just a terrible situation. And
Hamas said that if Israel would stop the bombardments, that they would let all of the
Oh, yeah.
hostages go, including Israelis.
And I have some land to sell you.
I was just going to say, you don't believe.
Yeah, but also they know Israel's not going to do it because, the Hamas just says these things to make Israel look bad. And that's,
See them, Rabbi, let them go, and as they're going, just shoot them in the back. I mean,
Yeah.
so letting them go, but
Yeah.
they're
it's a difficult. So we send our prayers to them and send our money and support, and make sure to, again, call our representatives and senators, and, Senator Ossoff has called our synagogue several times to check on us. Senator
Oh, good.
Warnick has done it as well.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
So hopefully, and I know Flossie has a friend of Sue Wiener. Why don't you explain it, Flossie?
All right, I heard from Sue Wiener that someone she knows has a nephew over in Israel in around the south in Gaza, and he's being activated. And so much of the equipment they're going in with is not in the best condition. And he wrote his aunt asking if they could collect some money that they can buy backpacks that they could carry a lot of their stuff. And it's coming from Sue Wiener. I have the woman's name in Arizona, the aunt. If anyone wants to, I ran this morning and mailed a check. It goes to her, and then she is sending a whole bunch of money over to Israel, that they could buy these backpacks, the IDF soldiers, and have them.
Isn't this what Hadassah is doing?
No,
I mean,
Hadassah is a hospital. This
Yeah, I
is
know that,
directly
but the
with
thing is that
soldiers.
we made donations to the Hadassah crisis.
Well, Hadassah is taking care of the hospital. This is a soldier on the ground making an appeal for helping his unit. You can do it or not do it. You and I know Sue. It's not a fly by night. I have the woman's name in Arizona, the aunt. Rabbi spoke to her last night. I spoke to her. If anyone wants to do anything, contact Rabbi or myself.
Yeah, again, this is sending money to an individual, so not everybody feels comfortable, but some people do because they know Sue. So if you do, just let us know. And we're happy. Again, there's a lot of organizations as well. Hadassah's one, Federation's another. And if you feel comfortable sending it to an individual, it's a great way to help out as well if you know those people.
Rabbi, I have another question for you, which has always kind of troubled me in the back of my mind. The second day of and it kind of leads into some of this, but the second day of Rosh Hashanah, the portion that we read is about Hagar, right?
Okay.
Leaving after Abraham takes her,
we actually read, but that's one of the portions we read.
and God promises them a land of their own. Now, it seemed, why do we read that the second day of Rosh Hashanah? It seemed to be such an unusual, it's always struck me, and it always meant to bring it up, and it just seemed like it's, what is the purpose? So why did the rabbis put that in?
Well, my viewpoint is very simple. Judaism never backs away from a difficult situation. We never take the easiest route. If you look at the Torah and the Bible, it is mostly about what we do wrong and how to do things better. This portion is very disturbing for a lot of people. It's a difficult portion, just like the Akedah, which we read on Yom Kippur, which is about, Abraham sacrificing his own son. For us, it is about debating that really serious, difficult issues. Abraham kicks out this woman from his house, and because he's told to, and for all he knows, she's going to go die in the desert, although God has told him he'll be taken. So, again, two of the portions we read are about the really difficult or poor decisions made by the founder of Judaism. And it's about debating what he did and what is right, putting God and that's what it's about. It's about putting God first, even when we're making difficult decisions that may seem wrong. So that is, I think, why we choose two of those passages, because they're traumatic he has to send this woman out for peace in the house, for his wife, for the future of his people, because he doesn't want an older boy from a different wife to really take over the family business, which he thinks he'll ruin it, or the family religion. So he kicks him out, which to us is very difficult. It's harmful. But God has said this person, they'll be taken care of. So you're taking God's word that your soon-to-be ex-wife and eldest son are going to be taken care of by God when you're kicking him out of the house. So that's why. So how do we discuss that? So that's a good question. But we will also have class next week. We will talk about who wrote the Bible, but if we want to talk about this instead, we can do that. I thought what? I thought somebody said that. All right. Mm-hmm. So Flossie, would you give? So if anybody's interested in sending money to Sue Wiener's nephew, just email me and we'll get that information to you. All right. Thank you, guys. I know it's difficult. Remember, pay attention to the news. Don't let it get you distraught. And double check everything, because there's so much information out there. Go to the consulate, go to the sites you trust, Hadassah, APAC, go and check everything just to make sure it's gone. It's true.
Rabbi, thanks for being so very flexible and just
Yeah.
changing the everything.
My pleasure. I
we
mean, this
spoke
issue
about.
is,
Yeah, it's tough. This has been tough.
yeah, the
Right.
first thing we do is we check the news. I mean, we could stay up all night. Obviously, Israel is on a different
Yeah,
time zone.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it's really important we don't. I mean, Lou, we'll finish with Lou.
Fox did donate $1 million.
Okay, see that? See,
to
and was it hard to check?
UJA.
And how was it hard to check?
Not at all.
Not at all. So, I mean, I checked the
Yeah,
Starbucks
good.
thing. I've gotten 2 emails about Starbucks. I'm
Yeah.
like, I know a lot of people. I checked it, and then I think you should double check it because Starbucks as a company came out against it. Their workers came out for it, but does that mean their workers came out for it, or does it mean the person who had access to the
Right.
website came out? Because I think that person is being, what you call it,
Blackballed?
admonished, or I don't know if the
Blackballed?
person. What's the Lord Lou?
Blackballed?
I don't think blackballed. I think that person is going to be admonished or even fired. They don't want
yeah.
their company workers' site to
Right.
be used for political platforms. So,
Yeah, because it was
You know.
going around Facebook saying boycott Starbucks. I mean,
right. And I don't mind
I
boycotting
mean, for
Starbucks.
Jewish
It's
people,
really easy.
exactly,
I don't-
exactly.
Of
don't drink
course, if I
coffee.
boycott, it's not going to hurt them because I don't drink coffee. But don't boycott companies that shouldn't be boycotted, is what I'm saying. And boycott, this issue of college campuses being very supportive of anti-Jewish and anti-Israel sentiment is a very big issue. This is the first time I've seen colleges being ostracized, or not ostracized, being, brought to the front. Harvard, the Ivy Leagues have been especially bad in some cases. So Harvard and Penn and Yale, and I think Columbia. I mean, if there are these issues, we have to bring out the fact that they are not stopping them. And I think that's a very legitimate. So, Lou, do you want to say one more thing?
Might be too long, but last week in your sermon, you said you've never been afraid of Israel not surviving. Are you afraid now?
No, I'm not afraid about Israel not surviving. I'm afraid of going to war. I'm afraid of what's going to happen after this. I'm not very supportive of the government now, but not because they're right wing, but because I'm not supportive of the ultra Orthodox at all. I think they're sucking the country dry financially, and that's just going to get worse. I'm not against the right or left otherwise. I'm afraid of the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court should probably be adjusted, but I don't think the Prime Minister of Israel should be in charge of the Supreme Court. I think that is a real problem. So I worry about Iran, but don't think is going to attack Israel. They don't do that. They attack through others. So I worry, but I'm not worried for the destruction of Israel. I'm worried for the reputation, for the people. And so, no, I'm not worried right now. When it gets to that point, it's going to be a little bit scary because never in my life have I lived that idea. I wasn't alive in the 50s or the 40s or the early 60s so that'll be a new feeling I hope I never have to feel and my children never have to go. I think the biggest threat to Israel is internal. I think it's the financial crisis that'll come in 50 years when 40% of the population doesn't work.
Mhm.
And I'm not anti-Orthodox because a lot of the modern Orthodox, serve in the military and have jobs. So I think, so that's that. I think that's a bigger threat in terms of the future of the country.
Has there been any reaction from the Arab Israeli population that are living in Israel? You got 1.8 or so million Arabs.
Yeah,
there.
I haven't checked that out. Generally, they're often they often denounce their government for doing these things, but they're not, which is fine because you're allowed to denounce your own government. That's why they live in Israel. But hopefully they're not probably protesting or doing violence. They have had that a few times. Most of the time they're not. They may denounce and support the Palestinians, but they don't want to live with the Palestinians. They don't want to live in the territories. So generally speaking, they're probably going to be fine. But again, they live in Israel, and even though there's some issues with, Islamophobia in Israel, their lifestyle is much better than any other Muslims in the world, probably. There should be some more equality for them. They should probably get better services, but it's not like living in the territories. Well, you guys stay safe, keep up the
Thank
fight
you.
and support.
Thanks, Brad.
And I will see you hopefully this weekend. If not, I will see you next week, same time, same bat channel. And we'll have a lesson, or if we're not, we'll start talking about this, because in a week, there hasn't been a lot of change in the last week. I mean, we all knew what was happening. We knew what was going to come, and it just had the big push has not come yet. So we'll see what happens.
I just want to thank everyone for their input, because it's given me lots to think about too. Not, thank you, Rabbi, but all of you.
Yeah, it's great. We have a lot of different viewpoints, but we're all supportive of
Yeah,
Israel, which is
yeah.
great.
Yeah, so,
Everybody take good care of
You
yourselves.
too,
Yeah.
guys. Stay safe,
Yeah.
everyone.
you.
all right. See you Saturday.
See you Saturday, guys.
All right.
Yeah,
Bye.
we'll see you
Bye,